Hello everyone. After getting my Aves spectacular sorted out over here, there were a few places that needed more work. What I've done is hit every single seam on the Brakiri Cruiser with some Mr. Surfacer. Okay, I also found some micro holes in a few spots and things like that. And you can see where the Mr. Surfacer is. That's where I misdrilled the pinhole, the mount hole. This spot right here had a really bad gap in it. And working my way around the seams, you can see that I painted that up all the way. That I've painted the sides up pretty well and the underside. You can also see some spots where I filled some bubbles and nicks I found. Okay, it looks like my seam work was really good on this. Looks like everything's holding up. And yes, you can see it in there. I even filled that inside seam with Mr. Surfacer. Okay, the seam's still coming out a bit, and I figured that would happen. I'll have to hit it 3 or 4 or 5 times. Let's get that lined up properly. I'll have to hit her 3 or 4 or 5 times to get that to work. I don't think I'm going to be able to get much in a way of a conventional putty up inside there to get that going. Alright? Yeah, and I'm also trying a new setting on the camera to see if it helps with the zoom focus. Apparently not. But there you go. This has got to set and cure overnight. Then I'll do some sanding. Mr. Surfacer really doesn't require an overnight cure, but I put it on pretty thick in places. So I want to let it cure overnight and make sure it is good and cured up. And I could already see a couple of spots are going to need to be hit again. And a couple areas are going to have to be shaped a little bit better. But she's coming right along. Coming right along very well. Alright, I'll be back in a few days when I get that straightened up. Hello everyone, Brakiri Cruiser time. I got her right here. Been doing some sanding work on her. I don't really feel many of these seams anymore. This one was particularly bad. I'm going to hit her one more time with the Mr. Surfacer. But it's pretty much gone now. And the bad one over here, there's just one bad spot on it. I can feel it right there with my finger. A little bit more work there and that's going to be good. So I've got almost all of these seams taken care of. The troublesome ones, the ones inside here, we're going to get the camera after it. See if we can get in there and see it. What I've been doing to get in here and get these seams, it's going to be hard to see just because of camera angles, lighting, and all sorts of other things. What I'm doing to get in there and get those seams, now that's a better camera angle. Let's see if we can get her from this way. Yeah. And this way. What I'm doing to get in there to get those seams is I am taking 2 different things. Let's back this out so you can see me and not Mr. Deslock's Cruiser. I'm taking a flat file, and yes, you can tell on this file that I've gotten her pretty fouled up. I'm going to have to clean that file out. I'm taking a flat file. I'm also taking one of these sanding sticks, these foam sanding sticks. Okay. And between the combination of the 2 of them, I'm able to get inside here and clean that up. Now, some of the epoxy squirted out between there, and you couldn't see it on the camera most likely, but I ended up gouging the resin in a couple of spots. And that file is real rough on the surface. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some of that Mr. Surfacer, and I am going to paint it all down that center line inside there, and then start hitting it only with these sanding sticks. I can also take a strip of sandpaper and run it through there. Let's see if we can get this where we can get it on camera. We can. I can take a strip of sandpaper, pretend this is a strip of sandpaper, and I can run it back and forth like this. Let's turn that sideways so you can see it. Okay, my hands are in the way. There. I can run it back and forth in there like that to sand that up better. The problem is there's no support, so it ends up doing this, and the center part here doesn't contact the model. So I have to figure a way around that. Popsicle sticks would probably fix that. Just glue the sandpaper to some popsicle sticks and then use my finger to jam it up as tight as I can in there. But I'll get it worked out. It's coming along. I'm going to start worrying about the stand real soon because I got to get that rod re-drilled back in there. My problem is when I drilled the rod in there, it was sitting like this, and I need it sitting like this. This slants upwards while this is vertical. And the big vertical stabilizer down here goes vertical, and the rod was tilting it out of vertical. So I'm going to have to drill this at an angle. Now I'm going to have to find that angle when I hit it with the drill press and get it just right. So, but we're getting there because, seriously, that should be my next step, is to get that in there, because I can't put the big vertical stabilizers on until that brass rod's in there to support it. I've gotten almost all the micro bubbles taken care of. She's almost done. Well, I'll be back in a bit, everyone. I'm doing the last bit of the putty videos right now. This is what I've been waiting on. Mr. Dissolved Putty. Finally got my hands on some of this stuff, and we're going to give it a try. The problem is, I got all the seams filled on Desloc's Brakiri Cruiser now. I'm ready to start gluing her up and putting her together. So I'm not messing with the seams anymore. So we're going to have to do this last little segment using the Brakiri Cruiser, because she has a few more seams left in her. And then we get to the Millennium Falcon with its submarine cockpit door. It's going to have lots of seam filling, so I get to practice my skills there. So let's open this up and see what we get. I figured it'd have this inner lid in it, just like Mr. Surfacer does. Same smell as Mr. Surfacer. Wow, that's strong. Very strong stuff. Getting myself a paintbrush. I've got some micro voids on this that appeared, so we're painting up some micro voids. It's thinner than Mr. Surfacer. That's surprising. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's thinner. The paint's on thicker. Interesting. There's one seam line along here that I know I didn't get when I was filling this earlier. Right along there. Maybe this needs to be stirred up. Maybe that's the problem. Let's get in there and stir it. Nope. This is how it is. It's runny stuff. Interesting. Mr. Surfacer is a thicker product. And again, I have just a couple of spots I know that need to be puttied again. And down the trench needs to be puttied really bad. I got in there and got a little crazy with the filling and the smoothing on the inside, and I messed her up some. I used a flatbed bladed chisel knife sort of thing to get in there and smooth it. It's level on each side, but there's some gouges, so I got to take them out. So I'm putting this stuff on there pretty thick. Interesting. I'm not used to something being that thick. But it dries up fairly quickly. That's a bonus in a putty. You want a putty to dry very, very fast. We'll see how sandable it is in a little bit. Because if it's real sandable and it holds its shape real well, this will be a winner. I just can't believe how runny it is. Mr. Surfacer, again, is far thicker than this. I kind of expected this to be Mr. Surfacer consistency. Not like this. Real thin stuff. I'm spreading it everywhere. Now, it does dry up, just like you put it on, which surprises me. So far, this is an interesting product. I could see taping either side of my seam and then hitting it with this stuff. I hit this seam really hard with some real heavy duty sandpaper, like 200 grit, because it was troublesome, and I just said, screw it, I'm going to sand you down flush the hard way, whether you like it or not. That's one thing about a model like this. There are no who's seen it, you know? If you haven't seen it, how do you know I'm messing it up? I'm not messing it up, and I know it. Interesting stuff, this. Drying real quick. I got good ventilation going in here right now. I think you guys can hear the fan going in the background, because I knew I'd be playing with this stuff, and it's real fume heavy. I could see taping up either side of your seam and then hitting it with this stuff and getting that seam just filled just real quick. Seriously. I'm messing it up worse than anything by hitting it this way. But anyhow, we'll be back once she dries and I get a chance to sand on her a little bit. I don't want to just let that camera run. So I'll be back in a bit. Alright, we're here to talk about the Mr. Dissolve Putty. It dried real funny. Here's a good example. Right there across the front of the ship. My camera wants to focus it back there for some reason. Let's not allow it to. Dried real funny right there. Feels real weird. And it's not very consistent when it's drying, in my opinion. I already sanded it off the front of the nose, and it feels like it filled that gap up in there just fine. So let me get at it sanding in the other places where I put it that are kind of strange, and let's see how good a job it did. Shall we? I'll silver coat this when I'm done so I can tell. I'll be back in a little bit, and I'm going to get it sanded down on the inside too. Ooh. Yeah, we need a good tight close-up of some lacquer thinner. Everyone needs some lacquer thinner in their lives. Alright, now let me talk about what I've been doing here. I got me some Deslocks Command Cruiser, and I found a seam that won't show, but I gave it some Mr. Dissolve Putty. Now, the top part has been sanded already, the bottom part hasn't. It goes on much differently than Mr. Surfacer does, but it sands off a little bit better. And it does look like it shrank up, but that was a pretty big gap to fill at the bottom. And you can see that there is still going to be a gap there after I sand it. I'm going to have to hit it again. Well, the top came out surprisingly well, though. There's a couple other spots I had found that I just dabbed it on. Let me go sand and see what's going on. This spot's definitely going to need to be hit again, because it didn't quite fill it. But it filled it up pretty well on the first pass, pretty quickly. This stuff might grow on me. It is harder than some of the other putties, because I hit it with 600 grit and it didn't even phase it. That's 320 grit that I just hit it with there, and it takes it off fairly quickly. So it's a bit on the harder side, but it's not harder than the plastic, which is a good thing. So let me hit it one more time and come back later and show you the end results.
It's October 28th. I'm off to the pirate party. Yep, look, even got the skull and crossbones. So, wish me a fun, good, jolly time for the pirate party. Hopefully I'm portraying the part.